Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to untangle this incredible web of global crises. We're talking about everything from economic shocks to new conflicts flaring up, and it all seems to trace back to one single flashpoint. So let's connect the dots and show you exactly how one standoff is shaking the entire world.
So it really all kicks off with this. Just one sentence. Now, this isn't some vague warning, okay? This is a direct threat from Iran's military. They're saying they will shut down 3 of the most critical maritime arteries on the entire planet. As you're about to see, this single statement is the first domino that sets off a huge global chain reaction.
To really get what's happening, you have to go right to the source, the epicenter, the Strait of Hormuz. This incredibly narrow waterway is where this dangerous standoff between the United States and Iran is playing out, and it is where this whole global story really begins.
And this slide, this lays it all out, doesn't it? You can see the core of the conflict right here. The U.S. makes a huge economic move, this double blockade, to try and stop Iran's oil from going anywhere. Iran's response? They don't just push back, they threaten to shut down global trade altogether. It is a classic, high-stakes game of escalation where each side just keeps raising the ante. And the stakes? They are just massive. 20%. I mean, think about that for a second. 1/5 of all the oil the entire world consumes has to pass through this one single choke point. So when this waterway is threatened, it's not some distant regional issue. No way. It directly hits the price you pay for gas, the cost of pretty much everything you buy, and the stability of the entire global economy.
But it gets even more complicated. This threat goes way beyond just a simple naval blockade. According to some pretty serious intelligence reports, Iran has also put a hidden weapon into play, a massive network of up to 6,000 advanced sea mines. This completely changes the game. It turns this whole thing from a strategic chess match into a psychological one. Just the possibility of these mines creates so much fear and uncertainty that it could paralyze shipping even if not a single shot is ever fired.
All right, so let's follow that first major domino as it falls. We're going to see how this military standoff is already sending massive shockwaves through the global economy, hitting people's wallets thousands of miles away.
And wow, the effect was immediate. It was dramatic. Almost overnight, the price of oil just skyrocketed, jumping well past that $100 a barrel mark. For countries and, for all of us already dealing with inflation, this kind of price shock adds a ton of pressure. It's setting off economic alarm bells in capitals all around the world.
And here's the thing you got to remember. This isn't just about the price of oil. We are seeing real-world consequences pop up everywhere. You've got Canada having to suspend its federal fuel tax. Portugal's tourism industry is bracing for a serious hit. And for a global powerhouse like China, which is a top customer for Iranian oil, this isn't just an economic headache. It is a massive strategic problem. So, with the global economy basically teetering on the edge, what's the next domino to fall? Well, it's diplomacy. A frantic, high-stakes scramble is happening right now, with world leaders basically racing against the clock to de-escalate this crisis before it spirals into a full-blown war.
And right in the middle of this scramble, a really interesting player has stepped up: Pakistan. They're running a very careful two-pronged strategy, sending their army chief to Tehran to talk while their prime minister meets with the Saudis. The goal here is pretty simple, at least on paper. Act as a neutral go-between and get the U.S. and Iran back to the negotiating table, maybe even in Islamabad.
But of course, it's never that simple, right? This whole diplomatic dance is getting complicated by something else. The U.S. isn't getting that full-throated support you'd expect from its traditional allies. European nations are looking at their own economic crises and getting really worried that the pain from this blockade could actually be worse than the problem it's trying to solve. And that's creating a very real split inside the Western alliance.
Which, of course, leads everyone to the million-dollar question, the one analysts are all over right now. Is this a calculated masterstroke by the Trump administration, a brilliant move to force Iran into a corner? Or is it a reckless gamble, a super high-risk move that's maybe designed to distract from other diplomatic failures and maybe even some growing problems back home? The answer is, well, it's far from clear.
So as if one major crisis wasn't enough, all this instability spreading from the Persian Gulf, it now seems to be acting like an accelerant, like throwing gasoline on another fire that's been simmering for a long, long time. Let's look at how all this tension has helped ignite a second violent front on the border between Israel and Lebanon.
And man, the situation on the ground there has just gone downhill, and fast. Hezbollah has dramatically ramped up its attacks, launching dozens of rockets into Israel.
Israel, in response, has intensified its own operations. And tragically, this means civilian casualties are rising, including children and even paramedics. What was a simmering tension has now just exploded into open conflict.
Yeah, and leaders all across the region are watching this unfold with, just total alarm. Turkey's President Erdogan said something that a lot of people are thinking, that just as the world is trying to put out one fire, these actions are deliberately fanning the flames of another, making any shot at regional peace that much harder to find.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the big picture, right? Geopolitics, military moves, economics, but now we need to shift our focus and look at the devastating human cost that happens when these big systems of power start to break down under all this pressure.
And this is just heartbreaking, and a tragedy that is absolutely connected to all this regional instability. A trawler packed with over 250 Rohingya and Bangladeshi refugees capsized. These were people fleeing, searching for safety, for opportunity. But their journey ended in disaster, with the vast majority of them now missing and feared lost at sea.
And listening to one of the survivors, the picture they paint is it's beyond horrifying. He describes seeing the bodies of women and children just floating in the water, and he says that dozens of people had already suffocated to death in the overcrowded hold before the boat even went down. It is a gut-wrenching, awful reminder of the real human toll when these global systems fail.
Meanwhile, shifting gears a little bit, we're also seeing these huge changes happening in other global institutions. In the world of media, the BBC, one of the globe's most respected news organizations, has just announced a massive restructuring. They're cutting over 21,000 jobs. That's a tenth of their entire workforce.
But, even while a lot of things seem to be under so much pressure, we're also seeing these incredible moments of progress and history being made. Over in Canada, Dolly Begum has just done exactly that, becoming the first person of Bangladeshi heritage ever elected to the national parliament in Ottawa.
And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Back to our final thought for today. We started with a naval standoff in the Gulf, and we've seen how that led to economic chaos felt all over the world, to a new war front igniting, and to a heartbreaking refugee tragedy at sea. We've seen how one single flashpoint can set off this cascade of consequences. And it's a stark reminder of just how interconnected, and maybe how frighteningly fragile, our modern world really is.